Morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here before you. I can assure you the image before you is not AI generated. But let me just make a few remarks about NSSF on behalf of our managing director. I just want to take you 10 years back to 2015 exactly, maybe 9 years back. I'd like to share with you the journey that the fund has taken over the last 9 years and the journey we intend to take over the next 10 years. So when we roll out our business strategy, we do it in 10-year cycles. And in 2015, we established a 10-year plan for the National Social Security Fund. I just want to bring you a bit of context about where we were at that time in 2015. We had assets under management of 5.5 trillion Uganda shillings. And when you think about it, NSSF was set up in 1985, started operations in 1986. So for those last, about from 1986 up to 2015, the fund managed to grow to 5.5 trillion in assets under management. Our context at that time were that obviously in the preceding years between, if you remember NSSF prior to in much of the 2000s and 90s, a lot of it was embroiled in controversies around assets, real estate and things like that. But most importantly, for those who are saving with the fund, the money was not actually earning a real rate of return. We were operating below inflation. So the context at the time, especially between 2010 and 2015, was to address getting the members a real rate of return. So a lot happened in that period, especially around the strategic asset allocation. So one of the things that we did was to really remodel the asset allocation so that members can get a guaranteed 2% above inflation return on investment. That was the basic thing. But between 2015 and today, we made a promise to keep that interest rate promise, 2% above inflation, and we've actually outdone it. So we made a promise on four things. One was to address the internal culture, make it more performance-oriented, and we call that 95% staff engagement. We also said that we needed to improve our systems to deliver valuable services to the member. And we said we should be able to pay a member in 1 day once they make their claim, especially the members who are due for retirement. With those two things, we said we'd be able to make the member happy. So we said 95% staff satisfaction. And finally, that should reflect in our balance sheet. Could we grow the fund to 20 trillion in assets under management by 2025? So 10 years. A couple of months ago, I'm glad to report, and I'm sure you saw it in the press, we hit the 20 trillion mark, 1 year ahead of target. And we've also kept the promise to pay the members 2 percentage points above inflation. Over the last 10 years, we've actually done about 4% on average. So it's easy to say that we've done well, but where does 2024 find us in terms of the context of Uganda? A couple of things to share with you. So the long-term savings in Uganda are worth about 23 trillion shillings, and 20 is with NSSF. So that just shows you that a country that cannot save enough, cannot invest, cannot develop. So we don't have sufficient savings to actually accelerate the growth of Uganda. The other thing which is also a bit worrying is that of that 20 trillion shillings in assets, when you look at the people who contribute to the fund, about 80% of that comes from just 10% of the workers. I'll repeat that. About 80% of that 20 trillion is contributed by about 10% of the workers. So what does that tell you? We have, on average, about 800,000 people actively saving with the fund. So the reason why we find this Mkutano very relevant is in the last couple of years, we made a deliberate decision that NSSF cannot just be for what we call corporate class. We need to be relevant to the entire working population. And that is the challenge before us. That's the context that we face in the next 10 years. How can we be relevant, not just to the corporate workers, but to all workers? And that is a very difficult thing to address. So partnering with the Mkutano, we hope will address that, because suddenly now, in the next 10 years, the context of what we want to do has changed. Today we are covering just 10% of the working population. By 2035, which is in the next 11 years, we want to be covering 50% of the working population. And where are these workers? Majority of them are in agribusiness. That is the reality. So when you hear that NSSF is going to be involved working with farmers, please don't be surprised. Don't think we're trying to do anything scandalous. It is just the context that we're trying to address right now. That's where the workers are. The other thing that we have to think about is much of our investments today are in fixed income, government bonds. And because of the efforts of the National Planning Authority, we hope to have oil coming out very soon. And government intends to stop borrowing a lot of money from the private sector. So we have to look for other sources of investments to keep that 2% return that we're going to give to you. And those investments are going to come from alternatives, such as investing in agriculture and climate-smart investments. And that is why we're here. Our business model is simple. We collect money from workers, we invest it, and then we pay it back based on certain benefits over a period of time. We are certainly not going to be running farms in the next 10 years. Our interest, and really our strategic focus is really to catalyze, attract capital, attract the right partners so that these investments actually make a return. So really what we want to do is to play a game of leverage. For every shilling that we invest, can we attract 3 shillings or 4 shillings? Can we mobilize the right partners to invest under the right conditions? And then can we actually do this sustainably over the next 10 years? That is why we're interested in the Mkutano, and we've been a partner with Mkutano for the last 6 years, I believe. And we'll continue to be a partner because to many people, ESG is a fad, but we all know the reality. We all know the reality that if we don't address the issues around poverty, around climate, then we are really entering a cycle of self-harm. That is the reality. And we need to address it deliberately. And that's why the fund in the next 10 years, we intend to grow to 50 trillion in assets under management. But most importantly, we intend to cover all workers in Uganda. Our goal is to have at least 50% of workers covered and with a retirement account by 2035. I'm hoping that with the partners gathered in this room, and I see a lot of smart people here, you can help us to find solutions around that. Thank you very much.